drug transactions.
The video surveillance reveals the gang activity in Villa Davila is bigger and far more sophisticated than authorities anticipated.
We confirmed that they went round the clock. Probably 10 to 15 minutes was the most time that elapsed between drug sales. We couldn't conceive that a drug point in that little community, that it would be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with constant activity even in the early morning hours.
The task force also establishes criminal conspiracy at the drug point by scanning the gang's radio frequencies. It reconfirms that Arroyo and his men are indeed operating an extensive and ongoing criminal enterprise.
It didn't matter what day of the week, it didn't matter what time of the day we went by. When we monitored that frequency, there was always radio traffic between Comandancia as being the base station, Puesto Uno, position number 1, and Puesto Dos, position number 2, or the drug point.
At that point in time, I don't think any of the gangs in Puerto Rico had really given much thought to the fact that their two-way radio traffic was something that was going to put them in jail, so they were careless.
The task force penetrates the inside workings of the gang and uncovers Arroyo's methods for avoiding arrest. An organized system of guards and lookouts throughout the entire neighborhood is an ominous sign of Arroyo's stranglehold on the community.
Any activity that entered into the Villa Davila area, they would call out whether they were residentes or clientes. They would call out whether they were coming in bicicleta or a pie, meaning on foot or by car.
We immediately started to tape record those transmissions, and they were very valuable in the case.
On the only street leading in and out of the neighborhood, the gang paints a white line, marking the control point for their drug operation. Nobody can cross it without their permission.
I will say that we could not pass. We had to ask for permission in order to pass the line to our homes. Not only that, but they had a password. And if you did not have the right password, they didn't let you across.
When the investigation started, we discovered that in this specific area there was a white line painted here. We learned that the cars from the customers could not cross this line because any car that was going to cross that line was going to run into the gunmen that guarded this area. Because the gunmen assumed that whomever crossed the line was not coming to buy, that they were coming to steal the drugs from the sellers.
Crossing the white line can be a death sentence for trespassers. Months after the task force investigation begins, one death sentence is carried out in broad daylight.
Approximately 4 or 5 months after the beginning of the investigation, one night, 2 men who belonged to another gang out of the metropolitan area came looking for a member of this gang, and they crossed the white line.
The lookouts with the radios had called in all along the way saying there was an unknown vehicle coming in, and when they identified it, they shot the car up with machine guns.
The gang's isolation is its strength. Untouched by legal authority, in Villa Davila they can get away with anything, even murder. Hey, where are the gang? But despite surveillance videotapes and captured radio transcripts, agents cannot infiltrate the gang's inner workings.
It was very difficult to recruit members of the gang or even residents of the area that were willing to share inside information of what was happening within that Villa Davila sector.
Without being able to penetrate the gang's structure, the task force worries that videotapes and radio transcripts are not enough to prove that drugs are being sold. The task force needs a break.
For us to be able to get to these gang guys, we had to use other resources, and these resources were based on informants. Informants who were unhappy with the gang because the gang did not want them around anymore. And one of these guys, well, they were down on him and some of his relatives.
The informant's name is El Puerto, who fears he is next on the gang's hit list.
I think there was a bit of a rivalry between Pito Puerto and Juan Carlos Arroyo Reyes. And because of that, I think Pito Puerto caught the raw end of the deal on a number of occasions, he started believing that it was going to be an inescapable situation, that he was going to have to leave anyway, and we were just fortunate of the timing.
With El Puerco in fear of his life, he gives Polly and Torres a detailed story of a brutal street gang determined to become something bigger. The gang's power centers on one man who was born in Villa Davila.
Para ese tiempo logramos identificar al líder de la ganga.
About that time, we managed to identify the leader of the gang, known as Juan Carlos Arroyo Reyes. This young man was around 23 years old, had some education, and was a natural leader and the power in the group.
Arroyo is the suspect of numerous other violent crimes. He has taken power after ordering the death of a rival gang leader.
Juan Carlos was obviously very intelligent. He was also, I think, very suspicious of not only others outside the gang, but even within the gang. And I think some of his response to some of the violations of other members of the gang was a result of his fear or his mistrust of even those that were very loyal to him.
The centerpiece of the gang's business is a drive-through factory-style drug operation. It has runners, lookouts, and drug salesmen working 3 shifts a day. The lookouts are paid $60 each for 12-hour shifts. The sellers are required to contribute part of their salary to keep the gunmen supplied with weapons and ammunition. Gang control over the area is complete.
The way the community that was controlled by this gang was absolutely without remedy. This gang had literally painted a line in the street where residents were not allowed to cross that line without asking permission from them.
Customers drive up to the white line and place their orders. Money changes hands. The drugs are brought out, and the customers leave the same way they entered. Inside the main drug house, gang members receive shipments and divide and prepare bags of drugs for distribution. Arroyo maintains control and a strict system of checks and balances. The backbone of Arroyo's power comes from his control over the money and his armed gunmen.
Okay, I want you to have that. I want you to have that.
A lot of the hierarchy was corroborated and then further expanded by Puerto. Juan Carlos was the clear leader. Keeping track of the money and the drug sales would confirm that, because the finances in any organization, that's a key position.
We could be big time. I'll work for you, boss. I'll make this happen.
Then the next level were the gatilleros, or the trigger men.
And the word gatilleros comes from the Spanish word for the trigger of a weapon. So anybody who pulls the trigger is a gatillero. These enforcers in these gangs are exactly that, either against one of their own gang members or a rival drug gang.
To young people in the neighborhood, the allure of making money is often too much to resist, giving Arroyo an infinite supply of young thugs to fill out his ranks.
So you could see them, looking up to some of these gang leaders with the eyes of a child, like, this is my idol, this is what I want to grow up to be.
El Puerco views the photos taken by the police and identifies members by name and role they play in the gang. All the members of Arroyo's crew are now identified.
In their making fun of the police, they allowed themselves to all be photographed. We used all of the photos of the police officers to actually identify the members of the gang, and in each case we were able to pinpoint who the source was talking about.
While the surveillance pictures are revealing, Agent Polly believes that for a jury, seeing is not necessarily believing. To convince a jury and bolster their case, the task force decides to make an undercover drug buy.
The purpose of making the undercover buy was to be able to refute any defense argument that, in fact, what was being sold at the drug point was not drugs.
The operation is risky, knowing what the gang is capable of. The undercover agents are alone.
When the undercover agent went in and made the buy, I think maybe from his perspective, he considered it no big deal. But then 2 of the people there on foot approached him as he was leaving in the vehicle and started talking with him. And again, I thought, oh, the gig's up. They know something's not right. They're going to jump in the car. They're going to pull him out. and it ends up they were asking him for a ride to the nearest bus stop.
The agents purchase 8 vials of crack cocaine. A subsequent lab analysis proves it's almost pure cocaine. It answers the question of why business at the White Line is so steady. The only way to take down Via Davila is to overwhelm and overpower the entire gang at the same time. For the task force alone, taking on a group of this size without experts is a high-risk, dangerous mission.
In order to be prepared for the takedown and obviously not to have any casualties, because we didn't want any on either side, and to do it safely, we made the decision to call in a hostage rescue team.
The FBI's hostage rescue team is part of the Critical Incident Response Group, or CIRG. Located at the FBI headquarters in Quantico, Virginia, the HRT constantly trains under live fire for a wide range of assault and rescue scenarios.
We have 3 primary core skills: close quarter battle, firearms, and sniper tradecraft. Close quarter battle is the drills that we do, whether it be in a stronghold, a building, a bus, an airplane. Any option that we would do requires cohesive coordination among our operators. It teaches them on a daily basis the discipline of making entry, how to work with other team members, as well as when to shoot targets, when not to shoot targets.
All clear!
The HRT is divided into 2 groups, assault teams and snipers. Only about 15% of those who apply actually make it to the unit.
From experience on the operation and looking back at other operations that we've done in the past, we try to create this kind of environment in our daily training. Our guys are used to going in under pressure, used to being put in a strenuous situation on a daily basis in training.
The gang is spread out over a well-protected neighborhood of 60 homes. There are dozens of people on their payroll and an untold number ready and willing to shoot at the first sign of trouble.
HRT was called in because of the expertise of their snipers to be able to surreptitiously gain an advantage, be able to monitor their activity and report that activity. We knew there was a good potential for violence with this group. The reports that we gathered from their treatment of other gangs, their treatment of individuals who tried to come into their neighborhood showed that they were a very dangerous group.
The gang they will face is arrogant and brutal. In the close quarters of the Via Davila neighborhood, the HRT will need all their skills for an enemy that has no fear of authority.
From basketball, baseball,
Arrival of 80 Americans and their equipment. The team travels in small groups. Their destination is a naval base in Puerto Rico.
In this case, we went directly onto the military base and stayed on the military base until we needed to move forward to conduct the operation. We did all of our training and rehearsals at the military base as well.
Upon arrival, the HRT faces the inevitable problem: how best to perform their mission when no task force agents can make it past the lookouts or Via Davila's natural perimeters. The team needs to know what they're up against.
From an operation level, the gang had tremendous control of their neighborhood. The neighborhood was surrounded on 3 sides by hills.
There was 1 road in, 1 road out, and it was surrounded by steep terrain covered by jungle vegetation. We analyzed aerial photographs, talked to as many people as we could to try to get as much information as possible about the neighborhood and any adjoining areas.
The first step for the assault team planners is to send out snipers to observe the target area. They must conduct their surveillance operation from a position close enough to identify suspects, but far enough away to prevent detection.
We chose a route based on terrain that was very rugged, mainly because we felt that due to the rugged nature, a chance contact with children or neighbors or just ordinary citizens would be minimized.
There is nothing glamorous nor simple about a hot and humid trek through steep jungle-covered hills. The sniper team's main concern is to stay hydrated.
Being stuck out in the sun all day, that was probably the hardest thing to do. Bugs, snakes, lizards, creepy crawly things. Anybody that's been in a jungle, that's what you deal with.
to insert for a number of days and not be observed by the community was going to take quite a feat. I remember one of the agents telling me that one of the HRT guys looked like a tree, that even if somebody had walked right by the guy, they wouldn't have seen him.
The teams remain in their positions for 4 days. In this environment, even the most ordinary activity could give away their position.
You're in a jungle situation like that, you catnap. You can't snore, you can't move around, anything like that. And if your partner snores, you'd have to wake them up.
From their hide sites, the team observes and records these daily gang routines. They are less than 30 yards away from the nearest suspects.
You could hear people flushing toilets, rattling dishes, carrying on conversations. It's amazing what you see. In this case, it wasn't a normal neighborhood. There were kids that did go to school. Some people got up and went to work. But there was a lot of very open criminal activity, drug dealings, money changing hands, visible weapons, which isn't what you see in a normal neighborhood.
The sniper team takes hundreds of photos. They offer irrefutable proof of the gang's criminal activity.
Those photographs, the ones that were taken from the hills, were to actually reflect the carrying of firearms openly. The videos of the actual drug point, of course, are very powerful evidence and almost irrefutable.
Even Arroyo is photographed red-handed. He is seen on camera making a drug sale.
The night before the takedown, Juan Carlos was observed in the street. It appeared that he was handing out the drugs. He would do something like that periodically. He would take a very active approach in doing that to remain in the good graces of those that he depended upon to maintain control.
The photos serve another purpose. They identify the different target houses where drugs, money, weapons, and suspects are located. There are more than 60 houses in the neighborhood. Spread out among those are more than 15 that are involved in Arroyo's drug operation.
From a planning standpoint, HRT was given responsibility, primary responsibility for the neighborhood where the subjects operated from. We let them know that the subject's prior activity, murders that they had been responsible for, what their actions were from that site that each team was going to. As operators are going in, their responsibility is to key on hands, to key on weapons, and look for threats as they're going in, but also to give strong verbal commands to announce their presence as law enforcement officers.
As you know, this is a secret briefing.
The takedown operation is planned for March 11th. For security reasons, the task force withholds details of the plan of operation from the local police in Puerto Rico until the morning of the raid.
It was necessary in that case to include the police of Puerto Rico. They are the known law enforcement agency. Even though this was a federal case, they know the area, they know the people, they know the customs. They know how to control people when they're on the street. Our jobs going into the houses were to control the people in the house, dominate them quickly to preclude a gunfight.
Clear! Area of,
The task force identifies 3 lookout posts. The main one is a gas station outside the neighborhood. The teams will have to get past the gas station without being spotted to maintain the element of surprise.
When it came time to plan for this operation, I could feel the intensity of operating in those conditions, having to make sure that I was mentally prepared. I was a SWAT team, so I had to mentally prepare and be aware that I was going to be in a situation that very well could have resulted in a shooting.
At the appointed hour, the attack begins. There are over 10 assault teams striking targets simultaneously in and out of the neighborhood.
Our objectives in moving into a site is to move hard, move quick, move strong, overpower the subjects with manpower, with firepower, and let them know right out front that it's not a good idea to fight back. We try to get in, dominate the room, dominate the house as quickly as we can, bring it under control, and establish a very strong law enforcement presence, not only in the house, but also on the street.
The attack unfolds as planned. The danger to the assault teams is greatest when they are exposed in the street.
On the morning of the takedown, the HRT had established a 24-hour observation of the whole area and then established a huge perimeter and conducted the initial entry into some of the key houses where we believe the top lieutenants and leadership of the organization were.
At every objective, the outcome is the same. In a matter of minutes, the 120 officers of the Safe Street Task Force captured most of their intended suspects.
We additionally had sniper coverage from the surrounding hills, but we also included a sniper on each of the team to control the outside area of the house and any threats that we might get from a neighboring house that was part of the gang that we didn't know about.
Evidence, drugs, money, ledgers, and weapons are recovered from various points around the neighborhood. By all accounts, it is a flawless operation.
Calm down. Get in there, shut up. Oh yeah! Oh yeah! Offer in. Oye, cabrones! Shut up!
Cuffed and taken away, including the gang's kingpin, Juan Carlos Arroyo.
Well, as the case agent on the takedown, I think I was most grateful that there had been no incident in which someone was hurt. Because of their violent nature, that was a great concern. I was also very grateful that we had managed to arrest the hierarchy of the organization.
The gang members do not believe there is enough evidence to keep them in jail. After all, none of them are caught with drugs or weapons in their possession.
They were smiling and talking to each other, and they were expecting to be unhandcuffed at any moment because once again the police had entered into Villa Davila and had not caught them red-handed. And we tried to explain the legal theory of conspiracy. Even for a period of days, I don't think that they fully understood the impact of what was about to happen.
The gang received sentences ranging from 15 to 22 years for conspiracy and other charges, including distribution of and intent to distribute narcotics, storing, hiding, and dealing firearms, and carjacking.
The offer was, if we went to trial on anybody, we would go to trial against them all, and there would be no plea. Through the control that Juan Carlos had, the word got out that they would all plead guilty, which they did.
Destroying the Villa Davila criminal drug gang is the result of a successful collaboration between the Safe Street Task Force and the FBI's hostage rescue teams.
We very much appreciate and like to work with field officers and with SWAT teams, things that keep our operators sharp, dealing with people, talking to people, being FBI agents.
The federal government, or the FBI, had the tools, the resources, and the federal laws in which we were able to work with the police of Puerto Rico and use these federal laws to put these people away and put them away for a long time.
Perhaps the greatest success of the task force's combined efforts is found on the streets of Villa Davila today. As Coque's police detective Jose Torres Diaz walks through the neighborhood, the fear is gone.
Hey, this is glorious. This is happy because you see the kids in the street. You don't see criminals.
Look around and observe that we are seeing a lot of children playing that we wouldn't have seen during those times because the terror was so overwhelming that the parents didn't let their kids outside to play. Even we could not be here recording and talking with the people here.
Some people who still live in Villa Davila fear retribution. Most won't talk about what happened here. Others, like this woman, are willing to talk about life under the gang's control in the hopes that it will never happen again.
You had to play their game. If I didn't, I don't think I would be sitting here right now talking to you.
Coming up, step into